Doing okay.
Uh,
How about you?
Doing well.
Well, I think probably oil is probably the one where most most of the world is familiar with. But I didn't know things like, the Nazis making synthetic fuel and like how they designed their facility to be visible from the air. I thought that was kind of interesting. Um, and also the part about how lead got into the gas supply. I didn't know that story. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these are, yeah, same. Like he could have gone into, rare minerals and so on. Everyone's eyes probably would have glossed over as well. But yeah, these are like core, because I think his overall point was these are not just stuff we use, but they're literal foundations of society. Like they're inextractably, they're where we've come from, where we are, where we want to go. He just left for some reason. Oh, he's back. But then, oh, sorry, we're showing something else.
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, you're fine.
You're good on this end. But made variants of lithium so, a key ingredient in thermonuclear weapons early on, actually, as well. Lithium just as a material lends itself well to the production of energy in obviously various ways.
Yeah. Yeah, like what, so I mean, what, expand on your concern there about the cars and the arms race. What, I mean, I could interpret that, but what do you mean? What are you worried about? Yeah, that's ideal. And my understanding is a lot of China has been electrified for transportation. I don't know how, what percentage or how much is that really true, but at least the concentrated cities, I believe they invested pretty heavily in that, that's my understanding. But no, I'm just musing out loud, nothing in particular going.
It's really about consolidating, moving as many people as you can, in as little an energy intensive way as possible, right? This is where public transportation becomes useful because rather than building individual units, also expending energy to get people from A to B, when you have a consolidated system like a bus or a tram or a metro, anything, et cetera, you can move large amounts of people quickly, uh, the least energy intensive way possible and resource intensive because it's worth considering. It's excessive, it's expensive, and it's unnecessary, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of like I understand why, it makes the most sense to just put out cars initially because that's the infrastructure that it supports. But then, yeah, you get into this bind of do you then say, okay, but let's start planning for the centralized transportation, or do you just keep saying, well, no, we fix it, we quote fix the problem because we got all our cars now. We're not very good at kind of long-term multi-step planning, unfortunately,
There's no
at least in
incentives
America,
for it.
right?
Self-reliance. Yeah. It's what's funny, it's one of the oldest, concepts in the world, and it's never worked. Like, it just won't die. This was Rome even, right? Like, we don't need to pay our mercenaries. We'll just do this ours like, you just this idea that plagues every society. It's mind-bending, but it's important to know that this is out there, and it's not possible to do. And once the resource leaves the place, it never comes back as the finished product either. That's the nasty part about raw material extraction and that kind of economic colonial model is that like the fancy dancy medical equipment and computers that those materials go into very very rarely go to help the people who are actually pulling it out of the ground. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah, I did end up going through the work just a while back, and yes, the Leopold stuck out for me.
Yeah, one thing I guess overall on that same vein of the book was that is I appreciate is I I don't know, maybe it had become more aware to me in the past, I don't know, not even very long ago, a year, maybe two, just from listening to other podcasters and such, of how much the material stuff is fully integrated into our economy. And every time I would bring it up, people would be like, "What are you talking about?" Like, they're, well, sure, there's a mine somewhere, and they get the stuff, and not that they, I'm not blaming those people for not knowing what's going on, but I like that hopefully this kind of thing is getting out into the world that, hey, these are tied together quite literally. Our material world, our economy, they're interdependent. Our economy isn't just floating dollars through space. It's literally the stuff in the ground it's tied to. So I appreciate that effort of the author. Yeah, and he didn't highlight. I mean, I don't know how much there is to highlight. I'm sure there's a lot of the actual like conflict. I mean, obviously he touched on it with the Congo and the Nazis or whatever, but things like what type of really bad shit are not the modern Leopolds of the world doing that we're unaware of or is under the radar. You know what I mean? Yeah, but oh, sorry. Well, yeah, yeah. And like the thing that stuck out about that was when he walked into the refinery and in the hazmat suits, it suddenly kind of hit him like, oh shit, this stuff is literally everywhere. It's going to get into me. I mean, just think of all the workers, countless workers of not. Now that's just one plant of stuff in the world. The exposure that other people having around the world for other stuff is got to be just devastating to their bodies. You know what I mean? It might have been. Yeah, I suspect it's not good. Like it's probably very unlikely that it's going to be benign in 30, 50 years or whatever. I did. I was like, dude, you prescient here. Right. You supposedly solve a problem, but it opens up, it's like what's a good analogy? The Hydra's head, you chop off one and others grow. It did, but like you just said, there's the downside of it. Like the part I wanted to mention about the tomato the tomatoes and the petroleum or the fertilizer, sorry. Um, he didn't even really touch on just regular crop fields, not greenhouses. Basically every crop field on the planet, minus organic farming, requires fertilizer inputs, and it's not just about the finiteness of the resource, but it actually depletes the soils more rapidly because you're basically yanking more food out of it by overstimulating the ground. You're killing it in essence to get more food, and generation after generation it depletes and depletes and depletes, and it runs off in the oceans and all this other junk. So it's like it seems like, well, we get all this food and we got this population boom. Yes, but at what cost to future generations? It might be enormous. Yeah. It's really, yeah, I'm sympathetic to the people of the time because they just don't know. It's not like they're are evil, have evil intent. These things truly seem like miracles that they found. They're going to literally transform lives, and they do, like you said. And it's like, okay, well, and then even later now you go, okay, so there's some trade-offs, but does that mean we get rid of plastics altogether? We're kind of, you can't undo the genie or put the genie back in the bottle. Um, I guess though, my cautionary mind kicks in and says, okay, we on one hand we don't need to be Luddites about new technologies and say like they're all bad just because these other bad things happen. But we should be smart enough now to look back at lead, look back at plastics, look back at oil, and say, all right, how can we, whatever new things we discover now, manage them in a very much smarter way instead of just full steam ahead, which is what we always do. We never try to look. We give lip service to like environmental impacts and stuff. We're like, yeah, but there's money to be had, don't you know? So we have to go forward, and then we'll deal about it. We'll let the next generation deal about it. Hopefully, we can get smarter than that. Sure. Yeah, like it must have been. It wasn't me who gave you that article, but it's what you're outlining is sounds very much like what I don't know if you read the book The Wizard and the Prophet, or outlining these kind of mindsets of how like you just laid it out there. This, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and yeah, the wizard, or like I call him the eco-modernist view set mindset. It's, yeah, it's like, no, we can have our cake and eat it too. And then the prophet's more like the one that's saying warner, being warned, the warner, sorry, saying you need to figure out what you're doing first, or hit the brakes a little bit before you move too fast. And maybe we need to actually conserve rather than just go forward. Or you can think of like the wizard as like the alchemist, oh, we can change anything into anything. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I hear you and I see your green outline on my end. Oh, which one? The Wizard and the Prophet? It's got to be within the past 5, 6 years ish. Let me look it up. Let's see. Yeah, it's not that old at all. First it won't tell me. Oh, 2018. Okay, I'm a little bit off. Yeah, I thought they hit one of their refineries, but I don't know, maybe they were talking about the UAE just generally. Um, I guess I kind of assume there's oil all over there, so like they've all got some, you know what I mean? So I was gonna make a joke earlier, like when you talk about Hormuz, like the author saying, this well, it'd be funny if he was in his book and he's like, well, the Strait of Hormuz and it's this essential to the flow. Thank God no one's stupid enough to disrupt it. Thank God, thank God no one's dumb enough to elect a person that would actually try to interrupt that flow. No, I mean, just other than just like the interest, like I get, like you guys already mentioned, I didn't know anything about lithium either, and where it comes from and what's it like, because it's always contained, like the author says, it's always wrapped up in a battery. You never see the stuff, and so it's like kind of a mystery. What is it? So I like that he explained, how it works and its substance, materials, properties, and so forth. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, like just after reading that too, he's talking about the battery in my cell phone it's actively exchanging ions and whatnot. It makes you just kind of look at your phone and go, oh yeah, this little bit of metal came probably from Chile, maybe Australia. It's doing stuff right now, and it's pretty amazing. Not infinite, but it's pretty amazing. My pessimism is still firmly intact, but I'm trying to be let a little bit of optimism in where I can, because I realize that there needs to be some optimism, or it's just it can't be a permanent pessimist, but it's still there very very much for me. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, like I always kind of think of, you know, well, it's not a great analogy, but anyways, I always not always. Sometimes I reflect on Nikola Tesla. It's in that kind of era. It's like, very optimistic, had this brilliant idea. He probably was like, I got this. I figured out how to save humanity. And then, Westinghouse and Edison said, well, hold on a second. There's money to be made here. Let's slow the roll here. I feel like that kind of thing is just happening all the time somewhere in the world. Oh, I think I'll give it a 4 because I could want for more, but I understand you got to squeeze things in between covers. You can only do so much, but it was a good read. It's easy read, accessible to everybody, gets the point home. Even though I would have liked him to put some more pessimism in his conclusion, he had a little bit too much optimism for me. But I'll give him a 4 for a good general audience book. But you? Yeah, for an otherwise really dry yeah, for an otherwise dry subject, he made it interesting that it, yeah, like you said, it's just accessible to anybody. Yeah, yeah, okay.